Get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet for up to $1,000 back in a beautiful bonus bet. Basketball comes on every night, almost every other night. You can find something that you could play some of that bonus bet money on. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code VOCH, V-O-C-H, VOCH. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Okay, only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code VOCH, V-O-C-H, VOCH. The crown is yours. We are back at it again. The Lombardi pod, that's not the name of it. He's going to say something very humble. He's going to say this is my home that he's visiting and he's happy to be here and he loves all the audience and all that. We're not going to stand by it today. It's always special when Bryan Broaddus comes through. Former NFL scout Bryan Broaddus, 105.3 The Fan, G-Bag Nation, Love to Start podcast that does incredible numbers. DallasCowboys.com and the incredible DallasCowboys.com draft show. Bryan Broaddus, how you doing, sir?
Doing well. Yeah, always a pleasure to be on the Voch Lombardi show for another week. I love, as you mentioned, I love the platform. I love the audience. I love the back and forth between you and I. I think you got a really good handle on this stuff, and looking forward to kind of chopping it up again today. All
right, let's do it 100%. So we have been going position by position by position. I love it that way. I don't like to bounce around too much. I think it brings a different level of focus when we just can do one group for an hour. So I can compare this guy to that guy, tell you why I don't like this dude. Oh, Bryan, I remember you telling me about TJ Tampa about a month ago. Boy, I like him more than these few guys that's been talked about a whole bunch. So I just like doing it unit by unit, player by player. We're going to do cornerbacks today, all right? If y'all haven't seen the other episodes, we've been doing this for a little bit. Go watch edges. Go watch O-line. Go watch, you know what I'm saying, the other stuff. And next week we'll do running backs, wide receivers or something. We'll see. But let's get into cornerbacks today. Bryan Broaddus, before we do that, cowboy question. Quick cowboy question. So I've been asked on a couple of different platforms, 105.3 The Fan Radio. Shouts out to KG. He asked me on his podcast also. It's not just a guaranteed shot that the Cowboys are gonna go center or just go offensive line in this thing, right? It's not just a 100%. Like, there's a possibility that you could get air quote wiped out of what you think, right? Because in my mind, okay, if a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, cool, he may be gone. Graham Barton could be there. Armarius Mims shouldn't be there, but it's a possibility that he could be there, right? Let's say those guys are gone. Is there a world that we live in? I'm looking at Brugler's top 100, and he has guys like Cooper DeJean ranked down in the 20s. You know, he got some of these other corners ranked down in the 20s. Is there a world that we live in where the Cowboys always say that they look to go best player available, and they always end up with the top player on their board somehow? They always end up with him. Is there a world where a guy like Cooper DeJean could be your first-round pick? You know, just Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, if you this organization does have a history of going away from maybe what we've all talked about all draft season as a need. You know, the center one would be a hard one to walk away from, but if they get wiped out, they will go best available player. Jerry will, you know, the way that they stack their board really dictates how they want to draft. You know, say they have 150 names on their board. Well, they'll rank those players from 1 to 150. Yeah. And as those tags start coming off the board, you get a very clear understanding whether you look at your board as by round or you look at it by stack, which is what the Cowboys do. And the one thing you don't want to do, Voch, in a draft is you don't want to jump tags. You just don't. And this is where, you know, where Stephen Jones and Will McClay and others have been able to kind of talk Jerry Jones through this. You know, when a Johnny Manziel tag sitting there, you know, and Ryan Shazier goes off the board who they were going to take, and Zach Martin's tag is above Johnny Manziel's tag, you know, and Steven goes, Dad, that we put that guy there for a reason. Yeah. Well, it's Johnny Manziel. It's Johnny Manziel. And no, you know, we as a group doing the work like this player better. So, yeah, if you know, if there's a corner sitting there, absolutely. You know, that the one thing they have proven is they can draft plug and play first round offensive linemen, And if they go with the best player on their board, like a CD Lamb, then, maybe some good things happen to him on the way, because they were talking about Diggs in the first round of that draft too.
Sure.
And what happened, that thing came around to 60 and Diggs was sitting right there. So the draft gods will smile on you if you trust your board. And I know it's a cliche thing to say, and all that, but there's a reason why you stack those guys the way you do. It's because of how you like them and how you'd like to take them and how you'd like to make them part of your team.
So let's just say, Bryan, we live in this world where Jackson Powers-Johnson is gone.
Right.
Zach Frazier, let's just say something strange happens and Zach Frazier's gone. Let's just say. And I don't think that's all that strange, because just 2 years ago the Patriots took Cole Strange, not the Patriots. It was the Patriots. Cole Strange. They took him incredibly early. So I just don't want people in the chat to say, "Oh, Voch, Zach Frazier will never go that high." We see strange stuff in the draft every single year. So Bryan, Jackson Powers-Johnson is gone. Let's say Cole Strange. Let's say Frazier's gone. Let's say Barton, right? And let's just say, for giggles, some of your favorite tackles are gone, right? If we're left with this guy, I'm going to say that name for you. If we're left with this guy, is that too rich for you? Too much? Too little? How about this? Keon Coleman. Would you go Keon Coleman 24 if your favorite center and tackle prospects are gone? Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to really love about Keon Coleman as a player. And if when you start to talk about the playmaking ability, the versatility, the size, there's just so many boxes that he checks.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's a deep position that he plays. But I have no problem with him. I believe I counted yesterday. I had 22 first-round grades on my board. So when I started putting my board together with all my names, so I knew where I was, been able to talk about all this, I got 22 guys with legitimate first-round grades. Okay, well, that means player 23 on, is a second-round grade for me. I got Coleman in that mix of that early, where you would start to talk about player 23, 24, 25. So yeah, to me, that's right in line to where, the Cowboys are going to pick players. So yeah, I have no problem with drafting that player.
Okay, see, I'm asking because I don't think wide receiver is a terrible emergency, but we may be in a situation where we have to pick a guy that we didn't plan on. For example, if you look at tackle, right, 3-tech. So Mozzie's 290 and Osa seems to be putting good years on the good years. There's gonna have to be a conversation where we talk about paying Osa. I think the Cowboys would lean that way. But what if Byron Murphy is there, right? Tackle from Texas. Can you pass on a guy like that, whether you got Osa or not?
No, you can't. And see, that's now Byron Murphy fits into my first round grades. He is my number 1 rated 3 technique on the board right now. And so if it came down to it and I was looking at, okay, who are the best players? You always want to take, as you look at your board, you want to wipe out those first round grades if you can. That's the thing that happened when we drafted when you go through the draft and Jason Witten's on the board and you got a first round grade and the grade's a 119, and the Cowboys still do this with their grading scale. The 1 means that's just a number for the computer, but then you talk about the 19, that's the bottom of the first round. So it'd been first round grade and then where you would take him within the round. So Jason Witten on our board was a 119. That's a first round grade, bottom of the first round. Well, we're sitting there in the third round. And Jerry Jones looks at Bill Parcells and says, "We got to take Jason Witten, right?"
Yeah.
And you take Jason Witten. Here you go. And so, yeah, you want to make sure, Kendrell Bell. Again, I'm going through my history of drafting with the Cowboys. Kendrell Bell, who was a linebacker, Georgia, had him in the first round. We took Quincy Carter. We didn't have a first round pick, but we had Kendrell Bell as a first round graded player. When we're picking in this second round, that should have been our guy right there. Kendrell Bell should have been our guy. What happens? Kendrell Bell goes to the Steelers right after us. He ends up being a AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year. Those are the kinds of things that the draft gods, that will give you a break on players. A player will slide to you. But if you have him in the right spot, you have to be able to be ready to take him. I think Byron Murphy, he fits that for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we're sitting there and it's like, wait a minute, we got a first round grade on this guy. Now, Bryan Broaddus has a first round grade. Maybe the Cowboys don't have a first round grade, but I know if it was me, and when we get into the draft and they ask, well, who do you have on the board? Who do you got? And if Byron Murphy's there, I would stand up on the table for Byron Murphy at that time. I really would.
Hell yeah, and I don't care who's playing 3 tech right now. We're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah.
We just gonna have to make a rotation of these characters.
Right.
You know, even if you look at the Eagles, right? Like that's a team that'll stack D lineman on D lineman. They don't care who they got starting. They'll just look for the future or whatever. But so I can respect that. One last one. If Voch Lombardi's in charge, like Peyton Wilson is linebacker 1. And he was already linebacker 1 for me. Film told me that he's linebacker 1. He has history of being hurt guy. I'm not going to get into his medical history because I'm no doctor and I'm not here for the HIPAA violation, Bryan Broaddus. But just based on the film, that's a first round dude to me. And then he goes out in the combine and he runs this ridiculous 40 time, Bryan Broaddus. Hey, it's only so much you can tell me about injuries that happened 3 years ago, especially when he's giving me 2 years of good football. Now, if you're asking me, I know everybody's going to say, hey, man, linebacker's probably going to go in the second round. That's cute, but I think that's engaging in groupthink a little bit, right? Hey, linebacker go in the second round because they should go in the second round, right? Running back should go in this. Tight end should go later. And to an extent, yes. But when I watch Peyton Wilson, Bryan Broaddus, when I watch Peyton Wilson, I'm not just watching some dude that's just, okay, you can take out Peyton Wilson, just put another character there and he'll just do just as much as he did. This dude got instincts. This dude got athleticism. We can see that now. This dude got coverage ability, man and zone, plus he could pass rush and give you a couple sacks, Brian. Come on, man. Is Peyton Wilson at 24, assuming we've been wiped out at center, because I'm not taking him over Jackson Powers-Johnson or anything like that, because I need center. We're wiped out at center. We're wiped out of all your favorite players, Bryan Broaddus. Is 24 too high for the linebacker with bad knees that have been good for 2 years?
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I've got him as linebacker 1 on my board as well. And the way I have him stacked is Wilson from North Carolina State, Cooper from Texas A&M, Colson from Michigan, and Eichenberg from Ohio State. Those are all my guys right there. I've got Wilson. He would be player number 23 for me on my board. So absolutely, that's where I would consider him. Last night, I'm out here in Arizona right now for another day doing Texas Rangers baseball, but I'm keeping an eye on the combine, and I knew, Voch, we all knew that Wilson was going to test well. There was no question. You could watch the North Carolina State tape. You see the lateral agility, you see the downhill player, you see the quickness, you see the speed, you see the burst. There's all these things to really, really like. The biggest question marks, and people have kind of, since he ran so well, people have asked me, do you still have concerns for the medical? I do. And I'm going to let my doctors and I'm going to let my trainers tell me where I need to go with this because he has been clean the last couple of years, but there's some significant knee injuries and stuff. Now, like I say, he's been clean the last couple of years. Is that something you could get by with? The Cowboys, you and I were talking in our little pre-show meeting, the Cowboys have had a history of taking linebackers that have had medical conditions and probably not got the full effect, I guess, or the full benefit from having a guy that's, like that. They've drafted guys that have been hurt. They probably play 4, 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years, and then they kind of move on from them. So I don't know. To me, that's where the Cowboys have to look. Where Dr. Cooper, Britt Brown, Jim Maurer, all these guys. I go back to my history. People that listen to me on my various platforms know that myself and Mike Lombardi drafted Jeremiah Trotter, senior, and he had a bad knee, but it was a third-round pick. It was a third-round pick at the time. And Jeff Lurie, the owner from the Eagles, and the team doctors, we all huddled. And doctor said, I don't know if he'll play 10 years or 10 games. I don't know that. And Jeff Lurie, to his credit, said, if we like this guy, Brian, let's draft him. And the rest is history, as they would say. So your ownership, your doctors, the scouts, everybody's going to have to come to the grips of how great this football player is and what is the risk of taking him. And taking him at 24 with the Cowboys is something you absolutely need to talk about.
my whole thing about him, and then we can move on to these corners is, of course, if you can get them in day 2, you're doing backflips and jumping on the table because you lower the risk, you've lowered the draft equity and all that. But there are 32 other teams that are saying the exact same thing, and there's going to be a team in the 30s or 40s. I don't think he's going to get to your 50s, right? There's a team sitting around in the 30s, in the late 30s. It could be Kansas City, and that'll just piss everybody off, wouldn't it? Somebody sitting behind you saying, "Hey, you won't take him, I will," and that's going to be a very lucky team. But I don't think it's going to be my beloved Cowboys because they don't do the right thing. Go ahead.
I think, Voch, I think there's a couple of things that you need to look at here. To me, I look at my board, and I got a couple of guys on my board that I feel like could potentially be right there in first-round grades. As I mentioned, Wilson being one of them. And if I wanted to move back, if I wanted to go back, and I'm like, okay, we're kind of in a wiped-out situation here, and maybe I could go back and grab one of these guys. Frazier from West Virginia, the center, as you mentioned before. And then Wilson is another one that now I could see somebody maybe trading up for both those guys though too. I could see. So you'd have to have several names ready. But to me, I'm kind of looking and seeing how the draft is going to go. And if I can fall back, I hate trading away from really good players. That bothers me. It really bothers me. But I also understand though, if I can collect some capital in this 3rd and 4th round, that's going to help me going forward as well. And I've kind of targeted Wilson, and I've also targeted Frazier as those two guys that maybe I could back up 3 spots and grab one of those guys and pick up an extra 3 or an extra 4 if I had to.
If you can get the 34th overall pick, do you go Frazier or Wilson?
You put me in a tough spot because you know what? And this is going to sound terrible. I need a center so damn bad right now.
That's tough. Man.
And that's tough on me. But you know what?
That's your window dressing your board? Like, is that window dressing your board?
No, it's
okay.
But like I said, it's tough. For me, if you ask me, I would take Wilson.
Okay.
I would take, because I got Wilson as my 23rd player. I would take, if I stack it, Wilson's going to be right there ahead of Frazier. If you're the Cowboys, you're kind of sitting there thinking, how bad do you need this? But damn, you need a linebacker too.
Mm-hmm.
You really, I just feel like to me that the center position is a little bit more important to them. But boy, that is a really good, who would you take guy?
Sure.
Me on my stack, I would take Wilson.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys would probably take the healthier player and probably take the center.
Yeah. And honestly, Bryan, we can do that 5 or 6 more times and it'd be really tough. If you could trade back to 34, would it be Peyton Wilson or Jordan Morgan? Peyton Wilson or Troy Franklin from Oregon. Once you get into that zone, it's a terrifying conversation to have because you love all these guys. And that's the bad part about winning so many games and not winning the Super Bowl. That top 30, like you like those teams that pick in the top 10 and that early second round, oh man, they get the best guys if they draft well.
Yeah. There used to be a time where the middle of the board was kind of no man's land, where you were starting to run out of names.
Yeah.
And that's at my point, it's not running out of names, but I run out of first round names, and that's where I kind of, that's where you want to try and navigate this thing to where you make sure, okay, do we really make sure that we got our best 22, 24, 28 guys up there in the first round? So when it comes time for us to pick, and you're right, don't window dress your board, but man, if it came down to a Frazier, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I'm sure there's a lot of people over at the Cowboys that listen to your show and would probably text back to me and say, man, you would take Wilson over Frazier every single day.
Yeah.
But like I said, they're going to have a decision to make about these, definitely about I'll tell you what though, Voch, if they if they sign a linebacker in free agency, it might answer your question about what they would do at center.
Well, let's just hope Jackson Powers Johnson is there so we don't have to have all this difficult conversation. Because
I'll tell you what, man, you're walking a really fine line when you got Philadelphia and Miami ahead of you too.
Yeah.
And then teams knowing that you need a center.
Sure.
That's the dangerous thing of teams trading out in front of you. And all of a sudden you get picked off that way.
I will not negotiate with terrorists. I'm drafting Peyton Wilson, and we're just gonna go get Cedric Van Pran. We're gonna find some guard that can play center. You know,
Yeah.
go find me somebody, whatever. But anyway, let's get into these corners, man. We've talked about Tyrion Arnold already from Bama. We don't have to talk about him too much, but I will add just a little tidbit that I haven't said publicly or whatever. Right? Let me tell you what I love about Bama versus LSU. Right? Tyrion Arnold's lined up on the outside versus Brian Thomas, right? Beat the hell out of him real bad. Couldn't do much. Meanwhile, our guy Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 1, right, Brian? Malik Neighbors is tearing it up from the slot. And if you just continue to watch that film, they say, I had enough of this. And they take Tyrion Arnold away from Brian Thomas. And Brian Thomas starts to do a little something after that, right? They take Tyrion Arnold away and they put him in the nickel and they make him run around with Malik Neighbors. And that is a fun little fight to watch, Bryan Broaddus. So I just think anybody that has any questions about those 3 players in particular, I try to find stories within common opponents within some of these films. I've already mentioned, hey, Joe Alt versus JT Tuimoloau when they go and play Ohio State, right? JT will beat Joe Alt, JT will beat Olu, but JT got whooped by Mims in the championship game, right? I just love storylines like that. So this story in particular, watching Tyrion Arnold whoop Brian Thomas, who's a top 5 or so receiver, then go and have a good fight with wide receiver 1, I think that says a lot about Tyrion Arnold, Brian.
It does, and I think you nailed the guy perfectly. In my notes, I said this. I go, is asked to cover the opponent's best receiver and shows out well. He's the technique. He's a sound player. He'll have no difficulty transitioning into the life in the NFL. He plays well in big time games. This is not too big for him. He's been coached hard his entire career at Alabama with Nick Saban being all over him. So yeah, this kid is. He is a special player in that way, and that ability to walk in the slot, play on the outside, whatever you ask him to do. Heck, I think you could even put him back there at safety, and he would probably be able to play. He just has that kind of ability.
Is he your cornerback 1?
Yeah, I was. It was funny because I was looking through all my notes, and he absolutely is my number 1 guy.
What makes him better than Kenyon Mitchell from Toledo?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I have it the way I have it booked. I have Arnold, Mitchell from Toledo, and then I have Wiggins from Clemson. And I don't think you're a big Wiggins fan. But I do like Wiggins myself. I kind of feel like that maybe the kid Tampa from Iowa State, that I might have slighted him a little bit, and I probably need to move him around a little bit more because McKinstry and Tampa, those would be like my top 5 guys is what I would have right now. But the thing that I think that makes Arnold special to me is, like you said, that ability to be able to walk over and just go wherever he needs to go to cover somebody, wherever he has to play in a game. And I'll tell you what, Mitchell's got some of those types of traits that you really, really, really like. He's a ball hawk. He's a guy that, he plays both sides of the formation. I didn't see him play a ton in the slot, but there were a couple of snaps, read my notes that he did. So the features of his body too, he's got that length that you really, really like. The thing that might just hold him back a little bit, and this, again, you got to evaluate this. You watch tape of Arnold playing against LSU. Sure. These 2 receivers are going to be in the pros. Mitchell, you find yourself watching tape against Northern Illinois, Miami, Ohio. Sure. Again, one of the best running backs ever to play in the league went to Jackson State, Walter Payton. Jerry Rice was from Mississippi Valley. Okay, small school guys, I always was taught, hey, small school guys need to walk on water. And you know what? Toledo, really, they play good football, but they play sometimes, like I say, you got to get guys that play well at times against really good competition, and that'll tell you a lot about the player. I just like Arnold because I think he's a really big game player.
Sure. And I do agree. I just wanted to hear what you had to say, right? Kenyon Mitchell, first of all, the first thing that just jumps out at me, right? 18 pass deflections is ridiculous.
No question.
18 pass deflections is insane no matter who you're playing against. And what I love the most about him is that he went to the Senior Bowl and locked up everybody else out there. So that meant a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
There's your help right there. There's your tape right there that if you're selling the player, and I say I've got him right behind Arnold. I like the player. I have no problem with the player. Yeah. But one of the things that I was curious about was what is his 40 time going to be?
Sure.
Because when you watch him, you don't see. I mean, I see a relaxed back pedal and some drive. I'm just curious about some of the carrying. We're going to see those drills in the old Al Davis Raiders drill where they pedal, turn, open, and go. And I'm interested to see how that looks for him. I'm interested to see his 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say because I think the tape is really good. Yeah. I'm not going to get lost in the numbers here.
Sure.
But I did put that as one of my questions as we'll be interested to see what his 40-yard dash time will be. He could like you talk about making money or maybe even making himself the best corner in this draft.
Sure.
Sure. Maybe.
Terrion Arnold is the only thing that's keeping Kenyon Mitchell from being the best cornerback in this draft. And it's just small differences between them. And one thing that really jumps out to me is that if you watch Mitchell, he has a certain aggressiveness to him. And I kind of like that about his coverage, right?
Right.
But if I contrast that to Arnold got a certain calm to him,
Yes.
So
yes.
And it's crazy because I'm being a hypocrite because I like aggressiveness everywhere else, right? But it's just something about being, playing corner versus these receivers, these top tier receivers. You have a calm versus those dudes. So that just leads me to believe, okay, I can't fake you. I can't double move you. I can't catch you slipping because you're not out of position. And not that Kenyon Mitchell is, but Kenyon sees Quinyon, I'm probably not even saying it right, but he sees it and he's an attack guy, right? And that's probably where he gets those 18 pass deflections, right? But Arnold is so never out of position. He doesn't have to be aggressive like that. He just identifies routes really well. He's always where he needs to be. He's an anticipatory guy. I hope I'm saying that word right. So it's just when I'm breaking down those two guys, it's Tyrion's calmness that just leads me to believe, okay, well, he's a very confident player no matter who he's up against, neighbors, wide receiver. He just has this calmness about him that just I think that'll translate very well to the next level to where, okay, when he's a rookie, when Mitchell's a rookie, and even when they grow up and be big, bad corners, right? You can't fool me because I'm so calm and I see things and I'm not guessing. I'm not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that if you wanted to give Mitchell the nod over Arnold is where you mentioned to how he sees things.
He sees it.
The reactions. I think that you don't get your hands on as many passes as Mitchell did. And, and if you watch the Northern Illinois game, he had 4 interceptions against Northern Illinois.
Crazy.
I mean, and 2 pick sixes. You don't do that by accident. You have to have the ability to read routes and, sometimes you're right place, right time, but you put yourself in position to make plays. And that's what Mitchell does.
Maybe it's the whole, Byron Jones argument, right? Like, hey, one guy's going to get your picks, but one guy's going to shut dude down and you'll never hear from him the whole game. So I don't know, we'll see. But 2 fantastic corners here. We talked about Wiggins already, so we won't have to get into Wiggins too much. I'm still just trying to figure out what I think it is, right? And this is a credit to Wiggins. Teams just don't throw it to him a whole bunch, so it looks like he's just kind of floating in space, not doing very much. But when they do attack, though, he is always in coverage. He's always in phase, and he is very, very, very lengthy. He's a little slim.
He is slim.
He's a little slim compared to some of these other guys, but he is in phase. I just found myself getting a little boring with him, maybe because they're not attacking him. And it's interesting with Wiggins because routinely, I don't think he wants to tackle very much, but I was watching North Carolina in some other game. He's chasing people 70 yards to go and stop a touchdown, right? So maybe he's a high effort guy that just doesn't want to tackle very much, but that's my whole thing about Wiggins. But fun player, cool dude.
Yeah, no, I like what you're talking about with Wiggins. And I know it took a lot for you just to admit right there, because you started talking about Wiggins, knowing that I like Wiggins a lot. So you were very careful to kind of dance around things. I get it, Voch. You don't like Wiggins.
He all right, man. He's cool. It's just he looks aloof like sometimes.
Wiggins, okay. Who would you have as your third corner then? Do you have him stacked yet, or are you still kind of working on that right now?
I think Rakestraw is much better than Wiggins. I think he's much better than McKinstry. I think he's much better than Tampa. I think, but this just could be my, I don't want to call it bias, but just my, preference. I like the aggressive corner. I like the gangster. He gets in people's faces. He's going to jam you up at the line of scrimmage, and then he jams you up again at 5 yards, right? He's a dude that loves to come up and tackle. He's a dude that's physical with these wide receivers, not even just punching on pass plays, but he'll punch the hell out of you while the receiver's trying to block him, stack and shed you, and then go and make the play in the run game. Feisty versus Georgia, and I think if you're feisty versus Georgia, you can be feisty versus anybody. I love Ennis Rakestraw. He's my cornerback 3 right now. I could be wrong because people say, Voch, you're the O-line guy. What do you know about corner? I know Rakestraw punching people in the damn chest at the line of scrimmage and at 5. Plus, watching Missouri, they do some of the same things that Bama does, and they do some of the same things that the Cowboys will most likely do. They do a lot of communicating, a lot of passing guys along, a lot of pointing, a lot of talking. And I love cornerbacks that can point, communicate, pass guys along and talk.
Did you the kid's from Duncanville, Texas, by the way, so that's kind of an interesting little sidebar there, but did you find that he kind of went in and out of the lineup? Did you had to kind of pay attention when he played?
So I had my film cut up for him, so I didn't see like the whole Missouri film not touched or whatever. But if they pulled him out the game, I didn't notice. But
you didn't notice? Okay, well, I was just curious. I mean, because sometimes that you have several corners that you like. I mean, that they've got another corner, there in Missouri, that we'd have to talk about too. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's kind of where. But I see what you're talking about with the player. I thought he really only tackled on the screen plays and stuff like that. I thought his biggest flaw was as a tackler.
Sure.
But he could cover. There's no question about that. I mean, but that's, you were kind of talking about Wiggins. I did see a guy that kind of loafs and drifts to the ball when he needs to get over there and help.
Sure.
So maybe that's why I did. And the fact that he was going in and out of the lineup, it kind of got me thrown off a little bit. But that's what I'm saying, man. Hey, you're Rocky Road's my chocolate chip. So
I will say this though: it is March 1st, and we got a couple more months to figure this out. See, look.
I hope so.
See, look, Brian. This is me, right? Like if I'm hearing something and somebody else is saying something different, I have no problems going back to the film.
You got me thinking about my guys now too, man. You're kind of evil in this.
Come on, Brian. Look at this. Hold on, Brian. Look at this. Watch him shed this block and come down and aggressively.
I'm just telling you. There were times when I'm like, man, does this guy want to really tackle anybody? Or I don't know. It was, but you're right. The guy he is fluid. He can change directions. I've seen him play both spots on the outside. I have seen him walk in the slot. He does use his hands well in the press coverage. You mentioned it, solid punch, and then he'll use his quickness to stay with the receiver and close on the ball in the air. So you got the right guy. It's just some other details you're missing, but other than that, all right.
It's an honor, Bryan Broaddus, for you to tell me I got you messed up about Nate Wiggins.
You got me messed up on this player. I need to go back and rewatch my Missouri film for sure.
I will revisit Clemson, and we'll just come back in 4 weeks and have this conversation. Rakestraw's great,
or not.
We'll just we'll act like this never happened, and we'll just move on.
When these cats get drafted, you'll go, hey, you know what? Voch really like this guy. That's all you'll say.
That ain't me, though. Look. Post-draft, I'm like, hey, I loved Wiggins the whole time. I'm a big fan of Nate Wiggins. I just like Rakestraw more.
You do.
Let me tell you who I didn't like at all. Kamari Lassiter from Georgia. I didn't like him too much. Maybe because I don't think that he runs very fast. But I do think he will be a perfect cover 2 corner though. Like if it's his job to just punch on people at the line of scrimmage, go and tackle pass guys along, cool. But as long as he ain't doing like a whole bunch else, fine. But I think that would affect, where you get drafted, because I think you make money off your man coverage and how good you are there. I don't think he's a very good man cover guy, but I do think he's a pretty solid zone cover dude. I just don't think he runs very well. He'll probably be a very good cover 2 guy with his physicality at the offense, physicality at the line of scrimmage, and his tackling ability. But go ahead.
I'll tell you what, man. No, you nailed him. You nailed him perfect. It's amazing that you and I can completely talk about 2 different players for 5 minutes and agree on one player here. So
that's how it goes.
How it goes sometimes in that draft room. Yeah, I think you completely nailed the player. He is not afraid to mix it up. And you're right about the press man stuff. I don't know really how good his ball skills are.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like that he's more about, I'm going to try and beat you up. I'm going to try and play with some toughness. I'm going to try and play with some quickness. You'll see snaps where he gets right up on receivers, and if he's forced to kind of collide or take contact, because I don't know if he runs really all that great. I don't know if he's really confident in his ability to run. But then you can see him kind of like, when he gets that collision and then he's able to stay in position. That's really kind of where he needs to be. But if I don't know if a receiver, and you mentioned this, I don't know if he could really catch up to a receiver if one got behind him. But man, the toughness, I think he's got a really good football IQ, but I think the speed might be a limiting factor for him.
What's his size? Like, do you think he could be like a possible safety type dude?
Now, I was going with the measurements I had, and I know we'll get all these things updated here in the next few days.
Sure.
I was going with 6'1", 180 is what I was working with.
So he's just a smaller physical dude then. Okay, cool.
That's where he's at. I think you got him. He might be a sub package player is what he might be. Maybe you put him in, maybe you put him in the slot. Maybe he play outside for you and stuff like that. But I didn't see anything lead me to believe that maybe that he could be a safety at the way he was playing.
Sure. So we may fuss about this, but let's do it. I don't think Cooper DeJean should just start off at safety. I think if Cooper DeJean ends up being a safety, it'll be like an emergency type situation, right? I think he can play outside corner. If he can't play outside corner, now we're in a situation where I get to be creative. You remember we were talking about Brian Branch? Like, not me and you were talking about, just drafting. We were just talking about Brian Branch, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you put Cooper DeJean as the nickel safety dude there, you can sign me up for some Cooper DeJean playing hybrid new safety big nickel type dude. Now, Cooper DeJean, there's nothing small and slight about him at all. He's like 6'1", 210, 215 or something like that.
207 is what I was working with, but you're right in the ballpark there. Yeah.
Can run. I think he's an Iowa track star. Also, I think he's broken the record for the 100 in Iowa, so he can run. But we'll see his run soon. But Cooper DeJean, just as a guy that I think can man cover, a much better zone guy to just to me, personal opinion. But I love his ball skills, Brian. Whenever I see a corner covering somebody and the ball is over there, but they stay on the corner, I get upset, Brian. What are you doing? We're here to go get the football. You have rights to that football just like the wide receiver does. Cooper DeJean is a guy in which I have a couple of plays in my highlight package. He'll be covering. The ball's over there.
Right.
All right, sir, I'm just going to leave you and just go make this interception. It was versus Michigan State. I'll pull up the film. It was versus Michigan State. He's covering some character and the ball goes to the end zone. I'm leaving you. That's ball skills. That's awareness. That's my eyes are on the quarterback, but I'm focused on you. And I'm looking at Cooper DeJean also punch the hell out of people at the line of scrimmage, punch him at the 5, but he's also an incredible rundown player and a great tackler with his size and all that, Brian. I like Cooper DeJean as an outside dude to start. But if he ends up being my Brian Branch type, nickel type safety dude, then we can party.
I'll tell you what, once again, I think you got the player right. He's a high energy player with really good toughness. I think he loves that physical side of the game, as you mentioned, and he's always mixing it up with the opponent. I kind of call him a right place at the right time prospect because he could put himself in position. He has an understanding of where he needs to be, the ability to get into balance when dealing with opponents' routes is really impressive. He could shadow guys really, really well. He tends to go where the ball is going. And I think you nailed him in that way. The body control, the redirect, the breakdown in the open field. He's a good tackler, as we've mentioned. When he can read the play and he can drive on the ball, he is going to get his hands on the ball. So the scheme, if you watch him play, the scheme requires him to play. Sometimes he plays sideways, and then he funnels the routes into the middle of the field. And so when you have to run and chase, when he has to run and chase inside, he's really good at doing those kinds of things. And I think that's important when you play cornerback in the National Football League. You have to be able to carry routes inside. When you play man, you have to. You cannot let receivers run away from you and then you get picked off and then it's a huge play. And I think he's got a really good feel for those types of things. He's a really good punt returner too, so that shows you the ball skills right there as well, to be able to secure the ball, get up the field. He's just a dependable player really at all levels for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
I think if you draft him, we're just talking for everybody, but just whoever drafts him, right? Yeah. I think he can fill up so many roles on your team, right? Like I said, sometimes nickel guy, he could travel guy. I think he could be one of those, hey, this game just follow the tight end or whatever, and not only kick return, punt return, but I think he can do everything as far as teams. Like let him run and go tackle dudes on teams, right? Even on defense, I had a couple of plays here. Like let him line up on the line of scrimmage. Let him blitz, like not like pass rush anybody, but let him blitz from the nickel and just let this dude tear up somebody's offense, man. I'm a fan of Cooper DeJean, and I am struggling between him and Rakestraw for 3 and 4. Okay, I take it back. Cooper DeJean is my 3. Rakestraw is 4. But I'm a big fan of Cooper DeJean. I just don't think he should just be rolled out first at safety. Let him see if corner works for him. But if not, Brian Branch, nickel safety type guy. I think that's fantastic.
No, I think you're right. And I was just curious because I was looking at all the names, say my first round grades, and I don't have a first round grade. He's not one of my first round guys, as I've mentioned early. But I'm curious what you think. Do you feel like that he might be the safest player to take on the board in the first round? When you start to talk about, we could go through Neighbors and Harrison and Adunze and Bowers and Johnson Powers, who I've got, and Latu, Murphy. Those are all first round grades. Sure. I wonder if he is the safest player to take, because everything you just mentioned about the player, you could find something for him to do, and he's going to do it well. So I wonder if, if you look at the health, the character, all the things you can do, you're getting a really, really, really safe player. And in the first round, that's what you want to do. You want to get somebody that's super productive, that makes plays, can help your team win, but you just know when you put him out there, you're not going to have to worry about him.
Sure.
And I think DeJean, I think he falls into that category for a lot of people.
And I know you don't really understand how floor guy and ceiling guy works or whatever. You don't really get
I hate that. I don't understand it. Yeah, I don't. I'm like, his ceiling is this, right? What he could be. And then the floor is who he is right now, or he'll never get past the floor. What?
Basically, so if you're a high floor player, that means you are fresh out the box. You're good to go right now. Talisi Fuaga, right? You may not improve very much, but you're very good right now. But a high ceiling player, like the higher your ceiling is if we fix your techniques and flaws and deficiencies, the better you become.
I got you.
So to your point, which is a fantastic point, Bryan Broaddus, and you can bring this up on your different platforms also. If you look at Cooper DeJean, he can do a lot of stuff for you right now. You don't have to coach him up very much. He gets it. When we let's just like Dallas Turner, the pass rush from Alabama, right?
Boy, he was flying yesterday.
He was flying. But you got to teach. Hey, maybe you got to teach him some pass rush moves. Maybe you got to acclimate him to the run game. Maybe you have to feel him out a little bit before I'm sure day one you can roll him out there on pass rush downs and he'll go and get some good pass rush for you. But as a complete product, can he do everything for you right now? He's a high ceiling player. Cooper DeJean, like I just said for you, he can line up at all the corners. He can go play teams for you. He can go do some safety stuff. He can go do some blitz stuff. He can go cover some tight end. So sure, to your point, he's one of those dudes that can probably fill up 9 or so roles for you. So that's fair. That's fair. Good point.
Thank you. I try and make points, good points. I save all my good points for you on this show, and then the other shows I just completely mess up.
Well, that's false. I got a button for you.
It's false.
There you go. I've been trying to hold the you know what I'm saying, the little soundboard away from me. We just do the real show, but I do a lot of stuff. So Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's another player that, you know, people may be arguing and fussing about. I saw some mock draft that had him taken by the Cowboys, 24th overall. I don't think he's a first round guy.
I don't either.
I think he's you probably get him in the 50s or so. I think he's a solid press man guy. We go back to the defense that Bama runs, you know, the whole match thing. Hey, if you're a Cowboy fan, that'll be useful for you. He can come right into Zimmer's defense and do what Zimmer wants to do, right? But I think he gets lost sometimes. I think he gets lost. I think he gets distracted. And don't watch Texas first, because you watch him versus Texas, it just looked like a great big mess. Like everybody ran past him. It looked like he didn't want to talk to nobody. He has better success versus lesser opponents. He'll go beat up on Missouri now, you know what I'm saying, whoever. But I think he struggles when the competition gets really, really, really good. I don't know what his speed is like.
Yeah.
But I see people run past him a little bit. You know what I mean? So Kool-Aid McKinstry is another character that I'm struggling with. Can you help me with Kool-Aid McKinstry?
Yeah, you know, I think that there is some – I think he's got some fluid play to his game. I think there's some – I think the pedal, the foot quickness to get out of the breaks – I do feel like that he could burst on the ball. I think he could bait quarterbacks too into some poor decisions the way that he aligns. I'm a big fan of Arnold over him. I think they got a nice 1-2 punch there with the player. But you're right. There's some things about him that you're going to have to work through, and we'll see exactly what his ability to run. I think he's a quick player. I think, like I said, I think he's got some fluidity to his game, and I think he can redirect guys with his hands, but the tackling stuff is not great. And, you know, he's not afraid to throw his body around a little bit. I think he'll need to be a little bit more committed to doing that. But I have Arnold ahead of him, and he just – mainly because of how well Arnold plays as a run support guy.
Sure.
But you're right. We need to figure out, does this guy really have deep speed? Does he have the ability to open, to turn, to run, and stay with guys down the field? Sure. I mentioned how hard these kids get coached at Alabama, especially in the secondary. But I feel like, though, that again, the big game play with him, but there's some flaws. There are a lot more flaws to his game than what you're dealing with, say, Arnold on the other side. I find myself was like watching Arnold more. I was like, okay, McKinstry, okay, that's what he's doing. Okay, good. Oh, what's Arnold doing on this play? You know, that kind of a thing. So he will get an opportunity just because, like I said, the size. I'm working with 6'1", 195.
Sure.
But the run support part of the tackling part of it, that's got to improve for him to be a guy that you can rely on playing every single day.
So I kind of threw out 50s, right? You know, not a first round. Is that too high for you? Like where would you draft him? Where would you possibly take him?
I think that you have him right. I had him if when I look at all my second round grades and stuff like that. Guys like I like Tampa, the kid from Iowa State, a lot. I like DeJean from Iowa better than him. I've got him behind. So if I went Arnold, Mitchell, Wiggins, and then I went Tampa, DeJean, and McKinstry. So he's right there where you're kind of when you start to throw with some of the if you compare him to some of the other second round grades, Hicks that I have, Sweat, Fisk. Braswell,
sure,
Frazier, Beebe, Morgan, Sanders, the tight end from Texas,
he's better.
Coleman. He's gonna. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I named guys I think that I would probably take over McKinstry right now.
Yeah, but
I think you've got him right in that 50. Say where Dallas is picking on back to maybe 65,
sure,
something like that.
Sure. preferably 65, like back in the 60s. You know, I think once we get to the second round, the Cowboys pick, I think there's going to be a lot of dudes on the board that we're going to like. And if you were to pick Kool-Aid over one of those guys, I would be pretty upset. So I think Kool-Aid's
I think so too. I would have a hard time. I would have a hard time with him because, like I say, I got 5 other corners that I had ahead of him, and and I know you got Rakestraw ahead of him as well. Yes, so I mean, you've probably got maybe a couple more than I even have.
Sure, I got Arnold over him. I got DeJean over him. No order, by the way. I got Wiggins. I got Wiggins better than Kool-Aid McKinstry. Brian, look at us. Kenyon Mitchell, of course, TJ Tampa, and
how much more do you have him over? You probably those tags.
The tags are touching in the 5th round for both. But I got one more player that I like a lot more than Kool-Aid McKinstry, Bryan Broaddus. Let me just jump around to this character. So Kalen King from Penn State. I'm watching Kalen King, Bryan Broaddus, and this isn't me getting too super excited or whatever, because I just don't want people to think because I'm excited that he's a first round pick or something like that. But Kalen King, 5'11", 205, something like that, possibly just me looking at him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he just gets physical in the rivalry games and maybe I'm just mistaken or something. But if you look at how he plays versus Iowa, how he played versus the Ohio State kids, he plays angry. He plays physical. He plays upset. He comes down. He makes plays in the run game. He's knocking the hell out of people. And I hope this ain't just because he was mad at Iowa. This play right here jumped off the film for me. I hope it wasn't just him being mad at Iowa that he came down and made this play. I'm looking at him and I'm projecting him to be like a nickel corner, maybe, possibly. I think he'll be a fantastic guy on the inside. Two-way go type player and just a physical in-phase dude. When you were watching Ohio State, and this was after me saying, okay, well, Kalen King will probably be a good nickel corner. He just kind of ran around with Marvin Harrison all day. And Marvin got some good ones on him, but Kalen got some good ones back on Marvin also. So chat, when I play these highlights of Kalen King on Marvin Harrison, they're highlights. Marvin got him back too. But it was a good fight to say that Marvin Harrison is possibly the best wide receiver in the draft right now. So I'm just watching Kalen King. I like physicality. I like aggressiveness. He gets a little handsy sometimes, but that's okay. That's what coaching is for. And I think that he's a player. If we're in the 3rd round and it's him or Kool-Aid McKinstry, I'm taking Kalen King to come play nickel for me.
I'll tell you, I like what you're saying here. I kind of felt like I was on an island there with King because I think you've got the player once again totally now. I said this in my opening line. You have to admire his willingness to come and make a play on the ball. And he sees it quick on the attack. There are times where he'll wrap up, and others he'll just launch his body into the ball carrier. It seems to work for him, though. He's a physical player, both run and pass. You're right. He could get a little handsy when carrying routes down the field. He'll get away with grabbing, pulling, hooking, but he does a really good job of playing the ball down the field. Had a few interceptions in his career, but he's also had his share of some misses. I had the Ohio State, Michigan State games is the one I studied. His speed is good enough. I mean, he can carry, he can drive, he can close on the ball. He's got a feel for how to read a route. He can see the quarterback. He makes plays. Yeah. His footwork, his agility, smooth transitions. There's some quick twitch to his game. And I think the biggest thing he has, he's got a high football IQ.
Sure.
He might not have the ideal length you want in a corner, but his style of play really makes up for that. And he competes hard through a game. And I like where you got him projected. Yeah. And I like what the vision you have for the player.
Yeah. And, and we're just going back to Cowboys here, here or there. And, if let's just say Jordan Lewis is not a guy that you can bring back, or even if Gilmore is not a guy, right? Yeah. Kalen King can play outside, but I think his future is at nickel. But you have a guy in Bland that, okay, if you can sign Gilmore, okay, cool, you can put Bland at nickel. But if Gilmore doesn't, if Gilmore doesn't, and then Jordan Lewis is gone, you could just take this guy and put him right at nickel. And I think he can play day one. I think he is a day one player because he's smart, he's physical, and he can cover. And I just trust him as a two-way go guy. He covered. He chased Marvin Harrison Jr. to the nickel. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you could do that, you could deal with whoever real life third wide receiver. Whoever, like if we're playing the Eagles or something, right? And their third receiver. He just covered Marvin Harrison in the nickel. He'll do just fine against you. I love him.
No, I think again, I think you've got the right vision for the player, and you know what? There's you give me a player that's tough, football IQ, and it's got the tools to be able to play with. You mentioned one of the best receivers in the country, so I'm totally on board with this kid. I thought I was on an island. When I brought him up on the draft show, and everybody looked at me like I had like I was crazy man.
No.
I'm like, have you guys seen Kalen King play from Penn State?
Yeah.
And yeah, I know Aisha, she's really good about writing that down. She'll look at Kalen King. She'll give me an honest opinion about that. But everybody else kind of looked at me like, no, haven't seen him at all. But you're right, man. The guy has a lot of ability and it's got some versatility as well.
Sure. One day we're going to drop our rankings for everybody to see, and Kalen King is going to be a little better than some of these guys. All right, let's finish off.
No question. Yeah, no question about that.
Let's finish off with TJ Tampa. You brought me up to him a couple of weeks ago. Hey, Voch, have you seen this TJ Tampa kid? And at that time, I did not. But I eventually got back into him, and I just love a big corner that can run around a little bit. He's not perfect. But he is a big corner that can run around a little bit. He does have physicality to his game. I think he capitalized off of that pass rush that they had. You know what I'm saying? Will McDonald was there tearing it up front, and he capitalized on a lot of that. And I think he can run around with some of these bigger receivers. And I think he can run, but I think he can particularly run around with some big receivers. I don't know what he can do versus some of these smaller blazing guys, but he seemed to be solid in zone, but I think he's much more of a man guy. And when he's comfortable, you can tell that he's comfortable. You can tell that he's confident. But if you're beating up on him, you can tell that you're beating up on him. Like, he's a very expressive player, you know what I'm saying? So not big fan of TJ Tampa, but I am a fan of TJ Tampa. He's probably like another day 2 guy that you could just get in the middle, sneak up on you.
Yeah, I'm glad you took a look at him. I think his size does give him an advantage when it comes to carrying routes, because I do think he's got some good foot speed, and I think he's got the length to stay connected with receivers. Sure. You could tell he loves the challenge of defending routes. The ball skills, the breaking on the routes. He does a good job of getting his head around when playing with his back to the line of scrimmage. I didn't think quickness bothered him all that much for a long guy. Usually when you get a 6'2" guy, they're going to be long, they're going to be leggy. It's hard for him to turn. But I kind of felt like that he was able to adapt the way that he was playing. I always love these kids from like Iowa State and places like that go and play really good football. They always seem to have like a chip on their shoulder. They probably should. Maybe Deron Bland shouldn't have been at Fresno, and nothing against Fresno, but maybe somebody in the Pac-12 missed this guy. And I know Iowa State's a Big 12 team and all that, but maybe this kid, I kind of felt like with his ability and his size, that he probably could have played at a Texas or maybe even in Oklahoma or something like that. Maybe a little bit step up. Iowa State, again, good football. Their players are tough. When you get them in the league, they play well. I think this kid's on that similar path.
I had this play pulled up, and when I saw it, I was like, boy, I bet Bryan Broaddus is just smiling from ear to ear when he sees this play. I bet when Bryan sees this play, he's just a big smile on his face, man. Yeah. Hey, crossing the formation, coming down, making a play, traveling with him, man. Yeah, that's your play. Yeah.
See, that's what I always, if you can find me a corner that can run with and stay with crossing routes and deal with all the trash and picks and things that you have to deal with and still make plays on the ball, you got my attention. Because it's hard. That is a hard route to defend. And that's why teams run them the way they do, because they know it's a hard route to defend. I think this kid with the length that he's going to draw a lot of attention from the NFL guys because at 6'2", that's a good looking player standing out there.
Yep. Plus anybody that wants to tackle, they have a glowing endorsement for me. Endorsement.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's huge as hell. Right, so I would like him to tackle like he huge as hell, but he loves to tackle, so that's cool. Yeah. Kalen King's smaller than him, but Kalen King likes to get in there.
Yeah,
you know
he
what
likes
I'm saying?
To get in there too. You're right, and that's what I'm saying. The part of this game, and Bill Parcells taught me this a long time ago, is that you have a corner that can tackle, saves you yards during a game. Yeah. You have a corner, you have a poor tackling secondary, you are going to give up a lot of yards. Tackling is important for these corners. I know that they don't. People are like, oh, they're paid to cover and all that. They're paid to get the ball carrier on the ground. give up big plays.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time when we preview these games and watch the games and post game. We talk how many big plays the Cowboys give up today. How many big plays did they allow? Was it tackling, coverage?
Sure.
Was it bust? What was it?
Sure.
Tackling's important.
Sure. And some people will look at cornerbacks tackling and maybe it's like 3 yards or so, maybe like 4 extra yards. But man, if you do that 10 times, that's 40 to 50 yards, man. That's 50 yards. Extra yards,
The hidden yards.
The hidden yards.
Parcells talked about that all the time. Those hidden yards when you get, penalties, tackling, think the hidden yards, punt returns, kick returns. You find a way to eliminate the hidden yards, or you're able to obtain hidden yards, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yep. Bryan Broaddus, is always a pleasure. Talk to you, even when you're on the move in Arizona watching baseball. I don't even watch baseball,
man. No. I tell you what, man, I am dying right now. I love what the Texas Rangers have done in baseball. They've been super nice to us being out here. But, man, the combine's going on. I'm dying. I'll tell you what we need to do. Next year we need to figure out, you and I need to get to Indianapolis. And I went for like 20 straight years to Indianapolis, and then all of a sudden I got in radio and I got out of going to Indianapolis. But we need to make sure our show shows up and do a bunch of shows every day from Indianapolis is what we need to do.
It'll be fun.
We'll get that done. We'll get that done. We'll get Foots. We'll get we'll get Will. We'll get the crew. We'll all Jazz. We'll all show up in Indianapolis one day. It'll be a lot of fun.
Man, that's so fun. It sounds incredible. Can't wait to get that done. I'm Voch Lombardi, but y'all here, y'all know me already. Y'all know me. But Bryan Broaddus is the star here, ladies and gentlemen. Brian,
shut up, man.
Shut up.
Shut up.
They always say, hey man, you never want to meet your heroes, man. They might be, such and such and such. Like, I have no problems.
Let me say this, the more you've got to work with me on these Fridays, the more you're like rethinking that hero statement. You're like, this dude can't evaluate quarterbacks to save his ass.
I'm not doing this next year. Nah, man, nah. Hey, look, this is what we do. We may disagree. We may that's the fun thing about this thing, man.
A lot of respect.
That's the fun thing about this. So during the season when Nate Wiggins shutting somebody down, Brian's just gonna, yeah, man. Told y'all.
I won't remind you about that. I'll just make you buy dinner next time.
I got you on that. Bryan Broaddus from DallasCowboys.com. Draft Show 105.3 The Fan, G-Bag Nation 2 to 7. Love to Start podcast. Does fantastic numbers. Shouts out to Bobby Belt and all those guys over there. And Bryan Broaddus on Twitter. Bryan Broaddus on Twitter. Thank you very much, sir. We'll be back next Friday. Y'all hold down for the Doski Woski. Till next time. Salute.